Ever met someone who wants a gold medal just for putting on their running shoes? The kind of person who thinks the universe owes them a customized VIP life experience simply because they glued a picture of a mansion to a vision board? The type who expects a six-figure salary, a flawless soulmate, an unparalleled inner peace, all while refusing to get off the couch or confront a single one of their glaring personality flaws. Well, grab a notepad, hydrate, and buckle up, because the godfather of analytical psychology, Carl Jung, had a few things to say about this exact breed of entitlement. And spoiler alert, he was not handing out participation trophies. He wasn't brewing chamomile tea and telling you that you're perfect just the way you are. Jung believed that if you want the treasure, you have to slay the dragon. It is the ultimate psychological transaction. Effort equals reward. The people who demand the gold while hiding under their beds in the castle, psychologically speaking, they deserve exactly what they put in. Nothing. Zero. Zilch. A void of meaning. We are about to embark on a massive, relentless deep dive into the human psyche. Let's break down Jung's ultimate reality check into 20 brutal, brilliant, and completely unavoidable truths about people who refuse to do the work, and how to make sure you aren't accidentally becoming one of them. Number 1. The shadow dodgers. We all have that messy, chaotic, deeply flawed side of ourselves. Jung called it the shadow. It contains every selfish urge, every petty jealousy, every dark thought you've ever had, and shoved down into the basement of your mind. The people who deserve nothing are the ones who refuse to look at it. They want the pristine, perfect life without doing the dirty work of self-reflection. Imagine buying a $1 million mansion, tossing all your rotting garbage into the basement, locking the door, throwing away the key, and then constantly complaining to your guests that the living room smells like a landfill. That's what avoiding your shadow is like. Jung famously said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." If you are dodging the discomfort of your own flaws, you are dodging your own potential. You don't get the clarity of consciousness if you refuse to pay the toll of self-awareness. You remain a fractured, fragile version of yourself, terrified that someone might smell the garbage. But avoiding your dark side is just the appetizer. What happens when you try to cover up that internal garbage dump by building an entire personality out of cheap plastic? Let's talk about the psychological equivalent of a heavily photoshopped Instagram filter. Number 2, the persona prisoners. Jung talked a lot about the persona, the social mask we wear to fit into the world. Let's be clear, the mask is necessary. You probably shouldn't act the same way at a rigid corporate board meeting as you do at 2 a.m. on a Saturday after 3 tequila shots. We all need to adapt. But the people who deserve nothing, they don't just wear the mask, they become the mask. They are so obsessed with looking successful, appearing profound, or seeming perfectly unbothered that they hollow themselves out completely. They want the roaring applause without having any actual substance. They are a walking, talking public relations campaign with zero actual product to sell. Jung warned that if you over-identify with your mask, you sacrifice your actual soul. You get the shallow validation, sure, but you forfeit any chance of real, grounded, authentic happiness. You become a ghost haunting your own wardrobe. So you're faking it, you're hollow, and you're miserable. Who do you naturally blame? Oh, wait until you hear how Jung scientifically roasts our absolute favorite modern pastime, playing the perpetual victim. Number 3. The Projection Perfectionists. If you want absolutely nothing out of life, here is the ultimate foolproof cheat code. Blame absolutely everyone else for your problems. Jung called this projection. It's a cowardly defense mechanism where you take the traits you secretly hate about yourself, package them up, and magically see them in your boss, your ex, or that random guy arguing in the YouTube comments. It is so much easier to scream at the world for being unfair and toxic than it is to look in the mirror and say, "Hey, maybe I'm the drama." The people who deserve nothing expect the entire world to adapt to their neuroses. They want the environment to bend over backwards so they don't have to lift a finger to change. But Jung hit us with this absolute uppercut of a truth. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. If you're just using other people as scapegoats for your own deep-seated insecurities, you earn zero growth. You remain stagnant, bitter, and entirely clueless. Speaking of childish, responsibility-dodging behavior, Jung actually diagnosed a specific condition for the ultimate avoiders of adulthood, and if you have a friend who still thinks the word adulting is a toxic societal construct, you're going to want to hear this one. Number 4. The Peter Pan Syndrome, Puer Aeternus. Jung and his brilliant colleague Marie-Louise von Franz talked extensively about the Puer Aeternus, the eternal child. This is the person who absolutely refuses to grow up. They want the endless freedom of adulthood, but absolutely none of the heavy, boring responsibility that pays for it. They jump from job to job, from relationship to relationship, waiting for the perfect, flawless situation to just magically land in their lap, completely terrified of actual commitment. Why? Because committing to something means closing doors, making sacrifices, and the eternal child wants to keep all their options open forever. They think they have infinite time. But here is the brutal mathematical reality. If you never commit to a single path, you never actually arrive anywhere. You remain an eternal amateur at life. You want the mastery without the 10,000 hours of grinding. You want the view from the summit without the sweat of the climb. But what happens when the eternal child gets a tiny taste of success without earning it? It goes straight to their head in the worst way imaginable. Prepare yourself for the ultimate ego trip. Number 5. The Ego-Inflation Addicts. Jung described a terrifying state of mind called ego-inflation. This happens when your conscious ego gets temporarily pumped up by something bigger than itself. Maybe you get a promotion, maybe you go viral, or maybe you just read one philosophy quote and suddenly think you're Socrates reincarnated. The people who deserve nothing take this inflated state and make it their entire identity. They mistake a stroke of luck or a temporary advantage for innate divine superiority. They walk around with a God complex, looking down on everyone else. But Jung knew that ego-inflation is basically a psychological Ponzi scheme. It requires constant external validation to stay afloat, and the moment reality pokes a tiny hole in it, the whole thing explodes. If you think you are larger than life without having done the grueling, humbling work of actual individuation, reality is going to pop your balloon, and the fall to the ground is going to break every psychological bone in your body. Okay, pause for a second. We've just covered the first 5 traps, and I know for a fact your brain is already working. Which one of these made a specific person instantly pop into your head? Don't name names. We're keeping it classy, but drop a number 3 or number 5 in the comments below if you know exactly who I'm talking about. But hold on to your coffee, because we are just warming up. If you thought the eternal children were bad, wait until you see what happens when these people completely surrender their brains to the mob. Let's look at number 6. Number 6. The collective unconscious leeches. We all share a deep, underlying psychological basement that Jung called the collective unconscious. It's full of shared human myths, archetypes, and instincts, but the people who deserve nothing don't explore this. They drown in it. They surrender their individuality to the safety of the mob mentality. Instead of thinking for themselves, they just absorb whatever the current cultural trend, outrage, or ideology dictates. They don't have opinions. The opinions have them. Jung warned that the larger the crowd, the lower the psychological level of the individuals in it. If your entire identity is just a copy-paste of an internet echo chamber, your favorite influencer, or the latest social media outrage, you are a leech on the collective. You want the safety of the herd without the courage required to stand alone. You deserve nothing because you don't actually exist. You're just a highly predictable algorithm of societal trends. But wait, standing alone is scary. It causes anxiety. And what do the people who deserve nothing do when they feel a little anxiety? They turn it into a shiny gold medal. Number 7. The Neurosis Nurturers. Jung had a fascinating view on neurosis, those nagging anxieties, depressions, and psychological knots we all get tied up in. He didn't see them just as illnesses. He saw them as alarm bells. A neurosis is your soul's way of screaming, "Hey, you are living wrong! Change your path!" But the people who deserve nothing, they don't listen to the alarm. They record the alarm, put it on a loop and make it the soundtrack of their lives. They nurture their neurosis. They make their trauma, their anxiety, and their brokenness their entire personality. Instead of using the pain as a catalyst for growth, they use it as an endless excuse to avoid trying. I can't do that. I'm too anxious. I can't succeed. I have too much trauma. Jung bluntly stated that neurosis is often a substitute for legitimate suffering. You want the sympathy without the cure. If you hold on to your sickness because it excuses your laziness, you forfeit the right to a healthy, vibrant life. And there is no place this toxic pattern is more obvious than in dating. If your love life is a burning dumpster fire, Jung has some extremely hard pills for you to swallow right now. Number 8. The Anima, Animus Projectors. Here's where Jung completely ruins your romantic excuses. He proposed that men carry an unconscious feminine side, the Anima, and women carry an unconscious masculine side, the Animus. When we fall in love, we are often just projecting our own inner ideal onto a deeply flawed human being. The people who deserve nothing go into relationships completely blind to this. They expect their partner to be a perfect god or goddess who fulfills every single emotional need, heals all their childhood trauma, and reads their mind flawlessly. When the partner inevitably fails because they are, a human being, the projector throws a massive tantrum, breaks it off, and blames the other person for changing. They want the fairy tale without the brutal, compromising, boring work of actual love. They are dating an illusion, and when reality sets in, they run. They deserve nothing but loneliness because they refuse to love a real person. But what happens when someone pushes their buttons? Oh, you know exactly what happens. It's time to talk about the people who let their triggers run their lives. Number 9. The complex captives. We hear the word complex all the time. Inferiority complex, father complex, savior complex. Jung basically invented this concept. A complex is a highly emotionally charged knot of memories and ideas in your unconscious. When someone hits it, you don't just react, you explode. The people who deserve nothing are completely held captive by their complexes. They are walking landmines, demanding that the rest of the world tiptoe around their triggers. Instead of doing the grueling internal work to untangle these emotional knots, they demand that everyone around them walks on eggshells to keep them perfectly comfortable. Jung noted that you don't have a complex has you. If you refuse to defuse your own internal bombs and instead hand the detonator to anyone who slightly disagrees with you, you have surrendered your autonomy. You are a puppet to your past. And how do these puppets explain away the chaos of their lives? They usually blame the universe. Let's talk about the people who completely misread the signs. Number 10. The Synchronicity Scoffers. Jung coined the term synchronicity to describe meaningful coincidences, events that are connected not by cause and effect, but by deep psychological meaning. You think about an old friend, and they call you 5 seconds later. You have a profound dream about a raven, and a raven lands on your windowsill. The universe is constantly winking at us, offering guidance and profound interconnectedness. But the people who deserve nothing, they aggressively scoff at this. They are so trapped in a rigid, cynical, hyper-materialistic worldview that they dismiss everything as random, meaningless chance. They want a life of profound meaning, but refuse to listen when the universe literally hands them a map. By demanding hard scientific proof for matters of the soul, they strip the magic out of their own existence. They live in a grey, sterile box of their own making, and then complain that life is boring. But even worse than ignoring the magic is completely denying the chaos. Jung knew that life isn't just orderly patterns, it's wild, unpredictable, and absurd. We are halfway through and things are getting heavy. Let me ask you a real question. Have you ever experienced a moment of pure synchronicity, something that completely defied logic, but you just knew in your gut it was a sign from the universe? I want to read your stories. Drop them in the comments right now. I read every single one. Now back to reality. What happens when the universe doesn't send a sign but sends a hurricane instead? Let's talk about the absolute chaos of number 11. Number 11. The Trickster Deniers. In Jungian psychology, the trickster is an archetype of pure, unadulterated chaos. It's the energy that flips your life upside down, ruins your perfectly laid plans, and exposes your hypocrisies. It's the flat tire on the way to the most important job interview of your life. The people who deserve nothing absolutely hate the trickster. They want life to be a perfectly predictable spreadsheet. When chaos hits, they don't adapt. They shatter. They throw their hands up and scream that the universe is plotting against them. What they don't understand, what Jung understood deeply, is that the trickster brings destruction to pave the way for creation. If your rigid little ego gets smashed by random chaos, it's because it needed to be smashed so something better could grow. If you deny the chaos, if you refuse to dance with the unpredictability of life, you remain brittle, rigid, and ultimately breakable. So if you're brittle, how do you get strong? You have to walk through the fire. But as we're about to see, most people would rather stay freezing cold. Number 12. The Alchemy Avoiders. Jung spent the later part of his life obsessed with alchemy. He realized that the ancient alchemists trying to turn lead into gold were actually creating a giant metaphor for psychological transformation, turning the heavy, dark lead of a flawed human being into the pure gold of an enlightened soul. But here's the catch. The alchemical process requires intense heat. It requires burning away the impurities. The people who deserve nothing want the gold, but they absolutely refuse to step into the fire. They want the profound transformation without the profound suffering. They buy the self-help books, they go to the weekend retreats, they post the inspirational quotes, but when it's time to actually sit in the agonizing heat of changing their own toxic habits, they quit. They step out of the crucible. They prefer the comfortable, familiar lead over the painful process of becoming gold. And because they refuse to become gold, they settle for being cheap, mass-produced copies. Let's expose the ultimate identity crisis. Number 13. The Archetypal Puppets. Jung mapped out the deep archetypes of the human soul: the hero, the mother, the wise old man, the rebel, the lover. These are powerful, ancient energies, but they are meant to be integrated, not impersonated. The people who deserve nothing let one single archetype possess them completely. Think of the guy who is so obsessed with being the Sigma male alpha hero that he becomes a walking cringeworthy caricature. Think of the person who over-identifies with the martyr, constantly suffering loudly so everyone can see how noble they are. They are just meat suits being puppeted by ancient energy. They think they are being unique and profound, but they are actually just playing a pre-written script as old as humanity. They surrender their complex, nuanced humanity to become a two-dimensional stereotype. So how do you avoid becoming a stereotype? You have to do the one thing the people who deserve nothing are terrified of doing. You have to actually become yourself. Number 14. The Individuation Evaders. The absolute core of Jung's entire life work is a concept called individuation. It is the lifelong, incredibly difficult process of integrating all your conscious and unconscious parts into one whole, unique, irreducible individual. It is the quest to become who you were truly meant to be, stripping away society's expectations, your parents' demands, and your own lazy habits. The people who deserve nothing look at the mountain of individuation, sigh and say, "Nah, I'm good." They evade the process entirely. They take the easy road of conformity. They copy-paste a personality from the latest internet trend, borrow their worldview from a podcast host and call it a day. They want the profound respect that comes with being a fully realized individual, but they put absolutely zero sweat into discovering who that individual actually is. They are unoriginal echoes in a world that desperately needs original voices. And when these copycats inevitably mess up their lives, what is their favorite excuse? They play dumb. They literally pretend they have no idea why things went wrong. Number 15. The Subconscious Saboteurs. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." This is the ultimate mic drop quote. The people who deserve nothing are absolute masters of subconscious sabotage. They constantly ruin their own relationships, torch their own career opportunities, and blow up their own health, and then stand in the wreckage looking bewildered, saying, "I just have bad luck. I don't know why this keeps happening to me." Yes, you do know. Or rather, your unconscious knows. Your deep, unaddressed fears of success, your hidden self-loathing, or your unhealed trauma is running the show. Because they refuse to shine a light into their own dark corners, they allow their hidden demons to drive the car, and then they act surprised when they end up in a ditch. But letting demons drive takes a lot of energy. Which brings us to how the people who deserve nothing completely squander their life force. Listen, we are 15 deep into Carl Jung's reality check, and I need you to be brutally honest with me, and with yourself. Have you ever looked back at a failed relationship or a missed opportunity and realized you were the one holding the match? Drop a 100 in the comments if you've ever been your own worst enemy. Admitting it is the first step to fixing it. All right, take a deep breath. We are entering the final 5. These are the absolute darkest, most dangerous traps that will drain your life force dry. Let's hit number 16. Number 16. The Libido Squanderers. When Jung talked about libido, he wasn't just talking about sex like Freud did. For Jung, libido was the total psychic energy of a human being, the raw life force, the creative drive, the spiritual fuel in your tank. The people who deserve nothing have massive leaks in their gas tanks. Instead of focusing their psychic energy on building a meaningful life, creating art, mastering a skill, or loving deeply, they squander it on absolute trivialities. They burn their life force doom-scrolling for 6 hours a day, arguing with strangers in comment sections, obsessing over celebrity gossip, and holding on to petty grudges from 10 years ago. They want a life of massive impact, but they spend their energy budget on cheap dopamine. When they finally look up and realize they've achieved nothing, they claim they never had the time. No, you had the time. You just wasted the fuel. And where do we get more of that fuel? We get it from the depths of our minds, but these people refuse to dive deep. They prefer the shallow end of the pool. Number 17. The Dream Ignorers. Jung believed that dreams were the royal road to the unconscious. They are the untamed, unfiltered letters your soul writes to your waking ego, packed with symbols, warnings, and profound guidance. But the people who deserve nothing, they wake up from a wildly profound, deeply unsettling, brilliantly symbolic dream and say, must have been that spicy taco I ate last night, and never think about it again. They treat their own inner world like it's a random noise generator. They want absolute clarity and direction in life, but they systematically ignore the personalized, deeply profound compass that their own mind hands them every single night. They live completely on the surface, terrified of the depths, and as a result, their lives remain superficial, dry, and disconnected from the deep currents of the soul. When you ignore the deep currents, your mind fragments. You break into little pieces. Let's talk about the refusal to seek wholeness. Number 18. The Mandala Missers. Jung was deeply fascinated by mandalas, circular, geometrically balanced designs found in cultures all over the world. He realized that the mandala is an ancient universal symbol for the wholeness of the self. The goal of life isn't to be perfect. The goal is to be whole, to balance the light and the dark, the masculine and the feminine, the logic and the emotion. The people who deserve nothing are completely fragmented. They don't want wholeness. They want highly curated, one-sided perfection. They only want to show the world their good side, completely neglecting the rest of their psyche. They are lopsided. They lean so hard into pure logic that they become cold and unfeeling, or they lean so hard into pure emotion that they become chaotic and unhinged. They refuse the incredibly difficult balancing act required to become a whole person. They want the center without building the circumference. And this brings us to the granddaddy of all Jungian concepts, the ultimate narrative of human existence, the journey that everyone is invited to, but very few actually take. Number 19. The Hero's Journey Quitters. Jung's work heavily influenced the concept of the hero's journey, the monomyth where a normal person is called to an adventure, faces terrifying trials, descends into the underworld, defeats the dragon, and returns with the treasure to heal their community. The people who deserve nothing. They hear the call to adventure, look at the dragon, look at the underworld and say, "Actually, I think I'll just stay in the Shire and watch Netflix." They want the treasure, they want the glory, they want the booming, triumphant soundtrack, but they utterly refuse the trials. They are permanent sideliners. They criticize the people who are actually in the arena, getting bloody and bruised, while they sit safely in the cheap seats. They expect the universe to just hand-deliver the Holy Grail to their doorstep via Amazon Prime. They quit before the journey even begins, and by doing so, they forfeit their right to be the hero of their own story. But there is one final, ultimate tragedy that encompasses all of this. The absolute peak of deserving nothing. This is the one that will keep you awake at night, staring at the ceiling in cold sweat. Number 20. The Unlived Lifers. The greatest psychological crime you can commit, according to Carl Jung, is the unlived life. These are the people who choose safety over substance every single time. They stay in the soul-crushing job, they remain in the dead-end, loveless relationship, or they never leave the comfortable hometown because the great, vast unknown is just too scary. They want the ultimate reward of a fulfilling, breathtaking existence without ever actually stepping into the arena. Jung believed that life demands to be lived, and if you suppress your true calling just to stay comfortable, that suppressed energy doesn't just disappear, it turns incredibly toxic, it ferments, it manifests as chronic anxiety, deep, quiet bitterness, and an overwhelming sense of resentment toward the people who actually did take the risk. You don't deserve the breathtaking thrill of the summit if you refuse to climb the mountain. If you choose the path of least resistance, you end up with a life of least significance. So, here's the brutal, undeniable bottom line. The universe is not a giant cosmic vending machine where you put in a few good vibes, say a couple of positive affirmations in the mirror, and get a flawless, perfectly curated life in return. Real meaning, real joy, and real psychological wholeness cost blood, sweat, tears, and a terrifying, bone-chilling amount of self-honesty. You cannot hack the human soul. You cannot bypass the necessary suffering of growth. Are you actually facing your dragon, arming yourself with truth, and stepping into the dark caves of your own mind? Or are you just hiding in the castle, aggressively complaining about the Wi-Fi speed and waiting for a rescue that is never, ever going to come? So, here's the brutal, undeniable bottom line. The universe is not a giant cosmic vending machine where you put in a few good vibes and get a flawless life in return. Real psychological wholeness costs blood, sweat, tears, and a bone-chilling amount of self-honesty. You cannot hack the human soul. Are you facing your dragon, or are you hiding in the castle complaining about the draft? If this reality check hit you right between the eyes today, hit that like button to let the algorithm know you prefer actual truth over toxic positivity. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive. And right now, go to the comments and tell me, which of these 20 traps is your biggest hurdle right now? Stop making excuses. Get in the arena. Do the shadow work. I'll see you in the next one.